Hey everyone, shorter video this week. We're going to talk very briefly about audience concerns again. And the reason we're going to talk about it is that we're going to be talking about counterclaims this week. And you need to be able to identify when an author uses a counterclaim. And we'll talk about what that is here in a minute, but it all centers around the audience and what their role in this conversation is in writing. So as you can see here, we've got the speaker, and the speaker is speaking to an audience. Now in a conversation, that speaker will be speaking to the audience, but then the audience has a chance to respond, hence the red arrow aiming down. So the audience can hear what the speaker has to say, and then the audience can respond. It's different if we change the speaker to a writer. When we do that, all of a sudden, this arrow disappears. Okay, because this is a one-sided conversation. You are writing to somebody who in the future will then read your writing and not have a chance to respond in real time as they are reading. I mean, maybe they'll respond in a forum, maybe they'd send you an email, who knows? For the most part, they're probably going to read the information and they're not going to have a chance to respond or be able to. So what we need to do as writers, and what professional writers do as well, is they anticipate the audience reaction. And so it looks kind of like this. We can have our ideas going up, just like this, and transmitting to the audience, but also we need to anticipate what that audience might want and need, or might think as a result of what we're saying. So that it's still a one-sided conversation, but our job as the writer is to anticipate the audience's concerns and the audience's opinions, what they might think of an opinion we put out there, or an argument that we make. So we're thinking about what their argument might be back to us. This requires a pretty high level of thinking on the part of the writer. You have to be able to imagine what a reasonable member of this audience might think. Okay? You have to think like someone else. And when we do this, what we're doing is we're anticipating what the audience might say, and we as the writers are creating a counterclaim. So let's take an example here. Let's say that my audience is a principal. Okay, a school administrator. And my topic that I want to write about to this audience is, let's go with year-round school. Okay. And I want to say that year-round school is beneficial because it shows in research that students score higher on standardized tests. They're more college ready. Right? I can say all these things to this principal, and the principal's probably going to be an audience that's going to say, you know what, I hear that. There are a lot of things that we need to consider about year-round school. There's a lot of things that have to change, a lot of votes that have to be taken at the district level, also at the state level. And so the principal might come back and say to you, if this was a conversation, well, we've got all these other concerns that perhaps you're not thinking about. Okay. If we were going to have this in writing, the principal, we might say as the writer, I understand that there are concerns about votes that need to be taken, but once the evidence is shown, you'll see that it's actually beneficial for our school and district and teachers, right? And the principal is very likely going to see that you have considered those things that are important to them, right? If we were to change this audience though, same topic, but let's change the audience to just a student. And I say to this student, hey, there's a lot of benefits for year-round school in terms of standardized testing and being college ready and all these kinds of things. That may mean a lot to teachers, but as far as the student's concerned, what they might respond with is something like, yeah, I don't want to go to school year-round. That's not happening. That doesn't sound interesting. I need a break. All of these kinds of things, right? And so what we might say instead, if we're the writer, is we might say, well, I understand that this might not be the most appealing option at first. You'll actually end up getting more breaks as a result of this than just summer. So the breaks will be more frequent. That's an argument that as the writer, we can anticipate what an audience might say And we can say, okay, you're worried about your breaks. We get that. And so I say, well, while somebody might think that this would be less time off, it actually works out to have just as much, if not more time off, but just spread out. That's anticipating what this audience wants and needs, right? And being able to anticipate what they might say back in order to sound A, more credible, and B, it sounds like it's altruistic, but it's not. You kind of cut off the audience a little bit. You kind of cut off what they're thinking ahead of time, sort of head them off a little bit, so that you have a more compelling argument, and so that readers who are sort of in between you and the opposing opinion would be more likely to take your side. You sound more credible, you sound thoughtful, and you sound like someone who has thought through the issue from both sides and still come to a reasonable conclusion. I hope this all makes sense. As you look this week, what you're going to be looking for are when authors use counterclaims. And these counterclaims, if you're looking for an extension, when an author uses a counterclaim, one of the things that it can do is it can build their ethos. Or if we want to talk about what that means, it builds their credibility. Okay, so if you remember that rhetorical triangle where we have logos, we have pathos, we have ethos. Logos is reason or logic. Excuse me, it's giving me shapes here, right? Logos is going to be reasons or logic. Pathos is going to be emotions. And ethos is going to be author credibility. So anticipating what the audience might think and providing a counterclaim is one way for the author to build their ethos. So I want you to see in some of these articles, how might an author be building that credibility by anticipating what the audience might say in return, and then sort of addressing that before their writing is over, and how that builds the writer's credibility. Okay, so if you're kind of looking to extend, that's what you'll be doing. I appreciate you tuning in again this week. On behalf of the whole sophomore team, again, hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you again same time next week.